You have reached the Geek Elite. Good luck.
What's up, guys? This is Jessica, normally from the Geeks Watch, and I'm here with John.
Hey.
Also normally from the Geeks Watch, and other things too. We all kind of jump around. But this is our first project that we're doing together. And It's the first episode. Yeah. Give us some slack. First episode. It's been a rough week, but we're going to launch this. It's going to be VHS Gems, which is a show that I think Mitch, Chris, and Angela did back in the start of Geek Elite, where they basically, you watch those VHS movies of your childhood and you kind of see if they live up to your nostalgia or if they don't. And also we're going to talk about some facts and trivia about the movie and kind of maybe a where are they now kind of thing, especially for child actors, because this one had some interesting child actors in it.
Spoiler alert, a lot of them are dead now. Just kidding.
I was like, wait a minute, I didn't read that. So the first movie that we got to watch, which I pulled this out, I don't know why I went over the top with this. I put them in a little treasure chest on these little crunched up Post-it notes, and I pulled out a random one. And the first one we got was actually one of my choices, The Indian in the Cupboard, which is a movie that came out in 1995. So I was 5 years old, and apparently I watched this movie a lot and I never understood why. And I watched it again. I still don't understand why I watched this movie so much. Had you ever watched this movie before?
Oh, yeah. I was a big fan of the book. I remember reading the book in 5th or 6th grade. By the time this movie came around, I was a little bit older. I was 14 around the time this came out. Yeah. But this thing had one of my, at this point, this is in the dark times of Lucasfilm, so there was a surprise cameo in this movie that just was worth the price of admission.
Well, was it a surprise, though, when Frank Oz was directing it, though?
At 15, I wasn't really keeping an eye out for that back then.
Oh, okay.
It was more I didn't really even know what else he'd done at that time, because I wasn't quite as into film. Later, of course, things came together. I was like, oh, he was this person, and he did that, and he also directed this other movie, and was the voice of this one, and all that other stuff. That came later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So Frank Oz, for audience members that may not know, is a puppeteer, and he's, John probably knows him really well as Yoda, but he also does puppeteering for Sesame Street and the Muppets and a couple other things. And now he does directing. And one of my favorite bits in the trivia on IMDb for this was that he straight up was I don't know why, I don't think I should have directed a child's movie.
You did a great job, though.
It was fairly well directed. There were a few shots that I was like, why? Why is this happening?
The hamster ball?
Yeah, the hamster ball was kind of...
That was
nuts.
rough.
Yeah. So you read the books. I didn't read the books. I probably didn't know they were books at the time. But yeah, this is based off of a book series called... The first one's Indian Cupboard, and then it kind of goes on from there. I think there's 5 books now. I think at the time when they made this, there were 3 books. And it was planned to do a trilogy for this, but it didn't do that great. So they ended up just doing the trilogy or any more movies. And this is the only movie we got. Although I don't feel like it feels incomplete, though. It had a arc, I would say.
Yeah, pretty much. I only remember reading one of the other books in the series, and I don't know exactly which one it was at this point. I want to say it was Return of the Indian. which was the second one.
The second, yeah.
Just to kind of rattle them off, it was besides Indian in the Cupboard, then there was Return of the Indian, The Secret of the Indian, The Mystery of the Cupboard, and The Key to the Indian. I know that at some point they figure out that the magic key works both ways. Besides summoning plastic figures, they also realize they can send themselves backwards to like the time frame of the characters. And yeah, it just gets pretty nuts from there. But yeah, that's about as far as I got. I think maybe it was the second one, and I don't think I've touched those books in going on 3 decades now. Wow. Really aging myself there, but I mean, it's been a while. I think the first book came out the same year I was born, as a matter of fact, 1980, so it's a 40-year-old story at this point.
And the books, I think, from what I understood, did really well. They got a few awards and were fairly popular when they came out. They
were like required reading at my school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting concept to like stick a toy in a cupboard that you get from your brother, and then the toy comes to life.
And no explanation for it ever, as far as I know.
Zero explanation. Well, I think the books do, because I think I saw something about in the 4th book you learn about an ancestor. But we're just talking about the movie.
His grandmother was a witch. That's what it was.
What's his grandma? Oh, was it? Is it? She was a witch.
Probably.
Yeah. I think it was something like that. Some magical something or another for some reason. So the Indian in the Cupboard starts out with this young boy, probably like 10, named Omri, and he's played by Hal Scardino, which is, I don't think he did a lot. He did like a few movies around the time, nothing that I really knew, and then later on it seems like he became a producer for some movies, like in these last few years.
Yeah, I think this was his only real starring role, as far as I can tell. He just did a bunch of bit parts in other movies. He was working somewhat consistently, but yeah, it looks like he just did a lot more behind-the-scenes stuff, which happens with a lot of child actors. They decide they don't like being in front of the camera, but they still like the business. And
yeah, I mean, that and child actors, I think especially boys, have issues when it comes to like going through puberty, where they like just kind of drop off the radar for a bit and then like come back after they've gone through all their change. Like, this is like, and I've noticed that with other things. It's also a big thing with singers too. Like once their voice changes, they're just gonna disappear for those few years and then come back with a whole new baritone voice or something. But he seems to have come back and taken more of like a standoff, like producing role. But yeah. On his birthday, he gets a skateboard, and then also Mom shoves a bunch of safety helmets and gear to him, and he also gets an old cupboard that one of his teenage brothers found somewhere and cleaned up, and it has a lock on it, but it didn't come with a key. But thankfully, Mom apparently collects old keys, and she found one that works on the lock. And then while he's out not skateboarding on his new skateboarding, just hanging out in a skate park, not skateboarding, his friend Patrick gives him a small toy Indian figurine. And because, what did Patrick say? He said something like, oh, because he reminded me of you, which I thought was such a weird forced line.
Yeah, and if I was gonna make the obvious joke, I'm like, that should have been the other way around, but
I know. Yeah, Patrick. Yeah, Omri is very white, and Patrick is of some ethnicity.
It's like actual Indian, not Native American.
Yeah, actual Indian. Which, this is another thing. This is not a politically correct terminology for the little Indian figurine. You later on find out he's an Iroquois. Native American from, I think, the mid-1700s. I wrote it down somewhere.
I think 1791 is what they said.
Was it 91? Yeah. Well, they said they were fighting the French. Okay, but anyway, Omri, like, of course, later on puts his new little toy in his new little cupboard and locks it in and goes to bed, and you find out he's like afraid of the dark and all these young childish things, and needs to sleep with his door open and everything, which is important, I suppose, because that was the other thing, was a lot of this stuff just seems very forced.
Yeah, he has tons of toys, and he has places for them. Why this particular Indian be put in the cupboard, there's no reason. He just does it.
Yeah. Just, it's just there, and he locks it up. And then he wakes up the next morning to the scene. When I was a kid watching this scene always scared me, and I always fast-forwarded through this part where he opens the cupboard and the Indian toy is alive, and he gets stabbed in the finger. I don't know why that scared me. And now I'm watching it as an adult, and I'm like, it is pretty, not climactic, but it's a little bit tension building. Like, he just walks all slow, and the music kind of rises. So I'm like, I guess I could get why this scared me when I was a kid, but or I just never wanted to be stabbed, which is a very logical.
Yeah, I'd always imagined that felt like getting like your blood sugar tested on your fingertip.
Yeah.
And that's not a pleasant feeling, so I can understand. No,
and then it's like, what happens after that? Like he tries to like talk to the Indian, which you find out he's an Iroquois then, and his name is Little Bear. I think that's when you find that out.
Now, just as an aside, his real name apparently is, the actor goes by the name Lightfoot, and somehow in my brain I like combined Little Bear and Lightfoot and called them Littlefoot. But I was like, no, that's wrong.
No, that's wrong.
That's the dinosaur from Land Before Time.
Land Before Time. Oh, man. I should add that into our treasure chest.
It was wrecking my brain, though. Because, like, why am I calling him Littlefoot? I know it's Little something or Foot something, but it's not Littlefoot. And it turns out his real name is Lightfoot, and his character's name is Little Bear. So,
yes.
Mystery solved.
Which I did see the actor Lightfoot was in, what was it, some of the Mortal Kombats, I think.
Yeah, he was in the second Mortal Kombat movie. He played the Native American character, big shocker, Nightwolf, who has exactly one scene, and all he does is play the role of the mystical Native American that guides the main character on his spiritual journey. Has no real other impact on the plot whatsoever. I think he comes into that one scene and is gone, and he's forgotten about completely by the end.
Well.
But yay for diversity.
Yeah, that's true. And I did see him also in House of Cards, but I do not remember his character in that. But I only watched, I think, like 3 seasons of House of Cards, so.
I haven't touched that series at all. I probably won't now. Thanks to Mr. Spacey. But speaking of just the people who are in this movie, the cowboy really, really looked familiar, and I couldn't figure out who he was, so I just looked up his IMDb. His real name is David Keith, which would probably screw with me because there's a different actor named Keith David. He was the voice of Goliath in Gargoyles, and the Arbiter in Halo. He's been in a lot of things. Oh, you watched John Carpenter's The Thing. He played Childs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so his name is Keith David, and I always get them mixed up, but now I remember, so David Keith is this guy, and Keith David is Goliath. But anyway, this guy is no stranger now to comic book movies. He played Matt Murdock's father in Daredevil. So he was the boxer father of Ben Affleck's character in the first Daredevil movie.
Oh, okay, the first one. Oh, man, I haven't seen that one in quite a while.
Yeah, it's not great.
Oh, yeah, it's not. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the guys of Journey into Mystery for Geek Elite, that Ian and Mitch will eventually get to Daredevil.
I think that's going to be one of their later ones. If they're going chronological, which I think they are.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun one for them to talk about. But, let's see. So I think one of my favorite parts of the whole movie happens a little after this, when he gets so excited realizing he can bring toys to life. He just decides to bring 6 of them to life. Yeah. And it's just a chaotic mess.
Well, and it's not just that, though. It's who he brings back to life that really sold it for me. Now, I don't remember in the book if he did it again with just random toys. I think this might have been made up just for the movie, specifically the characters that were involved. But I touched up on it earlier. So this was 95. So we haven't had any new Star Wars movies since 83. We had like those made-for-TV Ewok movies, and we had a couple of animated series like Droids. But nothing real Star Wars related. And of course, you know, I'm a big Star Wars fan. You also really like Star Wars. But you kind of came into a time where you started to grow up with it more in your life, whereas I was kind of like, okay, that happened when I was really little, and now it's just kind of like a big void. So around this time, I think Lucas was planning to kind of start sowing the seeds of Star Wars again into the public consciousness, because I remember distinctly around this time, not only did Darth Vader make an appearance in this movie, there was also an Energizer commercial that featured Darth Vader. And you have to YouTube it if you've never seen it. It's really stupid, but kind of funny. I think it takes place during the Battle of Bespin between Luke and Vader. When they're in that red and blue carbon freezing chamber. And then Darth Vader's lightsaber starts to go out. Like, it's just flickering like a flashlight that's dying.
Oh, I think I do remember this.
Yeah, he unscrews the bottom, and it's like no-name brand batteries. And, like, 10 years prior to Revenge of the Sith, he did the no. Like, that's technically, I want to say it's technically canon, because it's been referenced before.
Okay.
He shouts no for having bad batteries, and he's not able to defeat the Energizer Bunny. But yeah, that and this little cameo. So he puts in a Darth Vader, some kind of a soldier figure. I think it was a G.I. Joe. A T-Rex.
A T-Rex specifically, supposedly the T-Rex from Jurassic Park toys.
I want to say it was Jurassic Park, but it didn't specifically look like it. But Jurassic Park was out by this point, so to say that it wasn't a reference.
I thought I read in the trivia somewhere that it was a Jurassic Park that came out, like a toy that came out around 1993 or something like that.
Well, makes sense. Then we also had 2 Star Wars characters. It was like a Ferengi and a Kardashian, and a...
Star Trek, you mean?
Star Trek, yes. What did I say?
Yeah, you said Star Wars.
Star Wars again? Well,
well, that's not...
I gotta turn in my nerd card then. And RoboCop was the final one.
Yeah, RoboCop, and they're just
fighting each other because that's what they do.
That's what they do. I know. I feel like one of them should have been sensible to be like, wait, what is happening? Like, maybe I shouldn't be fighting right now. But then I'm thinking back to those movies and like, you know what? No, maybe not. Not necessarily intelligent.
Those were all, I mean, they were all very conflict-driven characters. You know, they know how to solve, they all have weapons, and they know how to shoot things or slice things up. I mean, I can't blame the T-Rex. The T-Rex is a T-Rex. It's, you know, you thrust it into this weird situation, probably pulled it out of the Triassic period. What's it going to do, you know? Like, but, I don't know. I think RoboCop at the very least should have read people their Miranda rights first before he started shooting. that went against character for sure, you know. Vader's Vader. He resolves conflicts with lightsabers. His aggressive negotiations, as he likes to call them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, those Star Trek aliens. I mean, they're all bad.
It's just a good, funny scene, and he just slams it shut and be like, okay, never mind. The other thing that he finds out, too, at the time is that it just turns anything plastic into a realistic version of it. So he puts, like, a little toy plastic teepee in it, and it becomes cloth, I guess, for Little Bear to sleep in that night. Yeah.
Which Little Bear is not happy about. He's, what is this? We don't use these.
No, we don't use these. And he, later on, Omri gives them some supplies and tools in order for Little Bear to build what the Iroquois actually live in, which is like these like wooden huts, I guess. I can't remember what he called it, a longhouse or something like that.
Longhouses.
Yeah, where it had like a nice wooden frame, and then I assume it's animal skins that normally go around it, but I think he got like thick paper, cardboard or something to go around it in this case.
And it had a skylight, which I don't know if that was a reference to the fact that they were building an actual skylight to their own house or apartment, whatever that was. It had to be their house, right? You can't just build a skylight in your apartment complex.
Yeah, it had to be in a house. Oh, also this does take place in Brooklyn, New York. So they have like a nice 2-story I can't remember, like, you know, those houses that are right on top of each other, basically.
What they call them, duplexes or something?
Yeah, duplexes, something like that. I don't know. I don't live in a city, but
yeah.
But that was the most random side plot going on, was the teenagers trying to convince Dad to put in a skylight. Like, is that a thing teenagers actually wish for?
And then, well, not only that, but later on, when the skylight's actually built, you see one of them just kind of laying under it, just staring up at the sky through it. Like, wow, he's really committing to this skylight thing. Like, okay. I don't know.
I guess.
I want to say maybe they were in the pot smoking age and they just wanted it for like a quick way for it to just kind of dissipate, maybe. But this was a pretty wholesome movie overall. I'm just trying to inject my own experience into it now.
Oh. No, yeah, they're pretty nice older brothers, which also, very importantly, one of them has a pet rat that I don't even think has a name. It's just very important that there is a pet rat.
Yeah, because it's going to create some very obvious conflict later on.
Yes. So, eventually you learn that Little Bear is seemingly... Like, this was the most interesting thing to me rewatching it, because I don't think I realized it when I was a kid, was that Little Bear actually had a really complex life. Like, it wasn't like he was just a toy brought to life. It was like he was a person brought forward in time. Like, this actual Iroquois used to exist named Little Bear, because he had, like, a dead wife and child, and and was on a hunting trip with his nephew, and I'm like, well, so you're a toy.
What you come to find out is that, yes, that's exactly what was happening. It was pulling, like, somebody's spirit, like some actual person that closestly matched whatever the inanimate object was, and, you know, brought it forward. So, like, you see also a medic at one point. And he talks all about, like, oh, wow, a ninja, and I've read about you. And he just keeps doing, like, the most stereotypical things, like how, and... this
medic was, I'm pretty sure from what he was describing, was a World War I medic. So battling, because I think he mentions, like, you just sit and wait until the battle begins, which is, like, basically how trench battles were during World War I. And he was fighting against Germans. So
yeah, he had one of those 10-penny helmets that's very, like, World War I British looking.
Yeah. Which the Tommy medic was played by Steve Coogan, who is in a bunch of other films, but also more importantly is also Octavius from the Night at Museum trilogy, in which he also plays a tiny figurine brought to life. So
yeah, he plays a Roman soldier, I think.
Yes, Octavius was a Roman commander, and he befriends the what's his name? He befriends
one of the Owens
cowboy,
brothers,
played by one of the Owens brothers.
It's not Luke. Who's the other one?
Will.
Yes.
Owen. Owen Wilson. Yeah, Owen Wilson. I don't know.
Owen. Yeah.
I'm not the one who's good with names.
No, that's the one. You got it. Yeah, and those guys become friends. And that one, Owen Wilson is the cowboy, and in this one we have again the what's his name? It said David Keith. David Keith. He plays the cowboy in this one. And it's important to point out they're from different time periods, because this one is from Texas, so he's from later on in the timeline. But
from 1879 Texas. I did write him down.
Oh, okay.
And then, Little Bear was from 1761, so before
61.
Yeah,
so before the American Revolution.
United States. Yeah, before the Revolution, which would have been the time when the colonies were fighting against the French.
So the French-Indian War. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
History, people. We're very prepared with it.
History. I know. I meant to look up all the history. I also meant to look up a lot about the Iroquois, and I did not have time to look up that much stuff. So I ended up just looking up trivia on the movie. Woo.
It's to make an synopsis. And for now, I think that can be forgiven.
Maybe later on. But this movie train. I like the thing about this movie is that it seems to be really trying to teach children like a really important lesson about like differences and stuff, and it just kind of sort of falls just like a little flat, or doesn't take it as serious as it should. which is like very much a 1995 kids movies, whereas kids movies nowadays, like, you get the message. It's thick in there and you're crying and everything. But
oh yeah. No, you know what's surprising about this movie to me upon this rewatch, because again, I haven't seen this since probably around 95, is how sanitized it really is. Like, there's no real conflict. I mean, there's the possibility of the little bear or the cowboy character dying because they get hurt a couple times, but there's no real super conflict overall. Like,
well,
the kid...
Even before the cowboy character is introduced, Omri takes another Native American toy from a figurine set, and it's this older gentleman, older Native American guy. I don't know if he was an Iroquois as well or another tribe, but and he brings him to life, and the guy panics and has a heart attack and dies. And although you kind of get a scene later on where, like, Little Bear is like, oh, you are a child. Like, you're not some god or spirit or anything. Like, you're just a child, like, playing a game. Like, you get kind of that. But you never see... Like, I feel like if I did that, like, I'd be devastated. Like, I would know, like, I killed that guy. Like, I killed that guy, bringing him to life and scaring him. But Omri's just kind of like... Well, let's just turn him back into plastic and bury him. Like,
I
dude,
think
you just murdered someone.
It didn't really dawn on him. I think he kind of thought of it kind of like if a pet, like goldfish, had died. I was like, oh no, that sucks. Okay, like, it just didn't really set in the finality of it. But yeah, you do get some interesting kind of cultural things in there as far as how the Iroquois in general, treat things with respect, like he does the thing where he goes hunting for a deer that he had Omri bring to him, like animate for him. And he does like a ceremony of, thanks for, his giving his carcass and everything. And he talks about how, you have to bury the dead. And he says, why are you afraid of him? He's dead now. Like, what's he going to do to you? And, Omri, with his more Western, more modern take on it is like, oh no, it's a dead body. Like, that's so wrong. Like, we're not supposed to see these, like somebody else takes care of this. So, that was interesting that,
know. And, like, later on you get that scene where he kicks the rat ball, and the force in which he kicked that poor rat and that ball and the stairs it fell down, that rat is dead, by the way.
You never see the rat be okay. It ends with the ball spinning and the rat's just kind of, like, clinging to the wall of the inside of the ball through inertia, but no, that thing's, like, firmly dead.
It's gone, and there's some other rat later on that's been living in the house. I'm like, oh my god, like, that was so violent. After he just had that lesson about, like, don't shock people to death. Like, just
speaking of that specific incident where he's in the under the floorboards trying to rescue the key, because we get through some other plot details where one of the brothers is, like, mad at him, so he hides the cupboard. And then the key gets lost, and then you find out the key's under the floorboards, and then the little bear goes under the floorboards to get it, but then the rat's also down there. I think 15-year-old me back then kind of wanted more of that miniature man versus giant regular monsters. Like,
it wasn't in the budget.
I just remember, like, I like Incredible Shrinking Man. Like, one of my favorite scenes is when he's fighting, like, just a regular house spider, but it looks like a giant tarantula to his perspective. Things like that. It was like, oh man, I kind of hoped way back when that we would get stuff like that. But now, as I'm older, I'm like, I'm glad that things weren't worse than they were. Because it sets up such an innocent environment that for anything drastic or intense like that just feels wrong and out of place. I mean, like, the Omri gets bullied by some other kid that barely looks bigger than him. And, like, the worst thing that happens is he gets a little scrape on his elbow. And I was thinking, like, oh man, I hope he's okay. He looked like he was pretty shooken up by that. And I was like, in a different movie, like, it could have been so much worse. And here, like, it wasn't that bad. This is definitely, like...
Even then, just, like, watching it, and where he is, like, 10 years old in Brooklyn, New York, and he's like, I can go to the store by myself, Dad. And I was like, this would never fly nowadays. And we have cell phones nowadays. Like, I couldn't imagine being a parent back then and not knowing where your child was constantly. Like, it's just like... Or being able to, like, check in on them. Or, like, GPS track them.
It was a whole different time back then. Kids would come home, like, they'd have a key to the house, and they'd be by themselves until, like, 7 or 8. Probably something that they could warm up in the microwave and watch cartoons.
Yeah, like, the age of, like, 8, and nowadays is considered child neglect, so, like...
Yeah.
Yep. But...
Which, I don't remember the parents or the brothers being that prominent in the book. I always remember them... if anything, they were just kind of in the background, mentioned here and there. But here, there's a lot of interaction with, like, the grown-ups and with his older siblings, too. Which, I guess, is to add a little bit more of that tension. Like, he's got a secret he needs to keep, and, you know, got to make sure that they don't mess with what he's got going on.
Yeah.
But, like I said, overall, just, there's not a lot of conflict here.
No, not really. I mean, the other conflict you get with Omri is... with his friend Patrick actually finding out the truth, which basically Omri doesn't really help keeping it secret in that he's like writing a journal about it at school that he shares, which is also another one of my favorite scenes where he's telling the story about how he's brought this Iroquois little bear to life or whatever, and the teacher's like, yeah, that's awesome, very imaginative, and then you see his friend Patrick just like pop up like, what? Like, are you serious? Is this real?
And it turns out it is real, which I guess does create a bit of a tension between the two of them, because Omri has to kind of learn that there's responsibility that goes along with this. As soon as Patrick finds out this can happen, he just wants to start doing it.
Yeah, he's really like, I am God now, and I'm going to bring back all the things, and I want this cowboy to be real, and just... So that's where Boone comes in, is Patrick... sort of like Omri's trying to be like, no, we can't just bring people to life, like we've got to be responsible, this comes with great responsibility, you know, every great power comes with great responsibility. Spider-Man,
I've heard that before.
But and the other thing, like Omri went to go talk to somebody and Patrick's mom was like, oh, Patrick's always so defiant, and then you just get that Omri understands what Patrick's mom is saying and understands what defiant means, and instantly is like, Patrick's gonna bring back the cowboy alive, and he runs up to his room, and sure enough, Patrick had just brought Boone and his horse alive, and which, I mean, that's the one character you want to bring alive when you already have like an Iroquois Indian alive in your room as well, is let's go ahead and introduce a cowboy to the mix from Texas.
I mean, why not, right? They go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. So Patrick wants the cowboy or Boone for himself, basically. So you get this. So, but Omri's like, I'll give it to him to you at school the next day. And he kind of locks Boone in a little shelf and goes to sleep. And sure enough, Boone gets out of the shelf and Omri wakes up to him and Little Bear having a fight with Boone's gun, which does actually work, and Little Bear's little bow and arrow, which eventually Omri just picks up Boone by the back and sets him up high where he can't do any damage. But
yeah, that happens so many times. I was like, nope, you guys are getting time out. And he always picks them up by the scruff and sets them apart. I did like that detail, by the way. I don't remember. I think that was in the books, too, where he would put in different characters or different toys to take away something that they have, like one of their accessories. He puts in a knight and takes away his like battle axe because Little Bear needed a hatchet to like help with building of his log house. And
I think that's where the lesson falls short, though, because Omri is like, this comes with great responsibility, and even though like he straight up was stealing from people, like that he was like, bringing alive.
That knight could have been in the battle for his life, and he just took his weapon from him. He's going to send him back unarmed.
Poor knight. I wonder if he makes it.
I don't know. But, oh man, like that idea is so cool though, of like bringing stuff back. I would so totally do that. I'd be super irresponsible with it.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I probably would not be as irresponsible with it. I mean, when I play like those role-playing video games, I still always make the right choices instead of being super evil.
Oh my
I'm
god.
making the choices I would make.
If we had like a whole Dungeons and Dragon meets Indian in the cupboard, everybody puts their party's like character in there and then make them live out the actual adventure.
Oh, that would be so cool, but so twisted and awesome.
Yes, it would.
That would be actually pretty fun. But then I'd be so sad when they die. I already am sad when they die or get hurt or anything.
Well,
when my character
thankfully,
almost died, I was devastated.
we haven't had one of those DMs though that will actually take your character sheet and rip it if your character dies. It's like, nope, this one doesn't exist anymore. You can re-roll or, I don't know, do some other shenanigans. But there's some people that are really sticklers for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've only had one DM so far, but I hope I don't get one like that because honestly, I'm already going to use my Dungeons & Dragons character in a book, but like, you know, okay. Tangent done. So the whole thing is that Omri is trying to like keep this a secret from his family, and then he does things that is just so obvious that he's keeping a secret. And that can't come out even more than when he's walking to school with his fanny pack with Boone and Little Bear inside, walking at a snail's pace. And his mom's just like, yeah, you're just being weird. My mom would have given me, like, I would be investigated over why I was acting so weird. Like, that would not have flown.
I was like, you want something healthy for breakfast? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, basically, like, what's going on? Like, even if I say something slightly weird or just run a hand through my hair a certain way, my mom's like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, nothing. But just...
I was like, no, I'm not hiding some incredible secret.
I know, there's nothing in this fanny pack that I can't jostle too much. And I think that would be a question, like, what is in there that you can't jostle? Like, are you carrying a glass figurine in your fanny pack right now? Like, what is happening? And then, of course, Patrick gets the fanny pack later on and almost ruins everything, which this was, from what I could tell, the actor who plays Patrick, which I cannot remember his name, nor did I write it down, this was his only film that I saw. Really? I think so.
It looks like his name is Rishi Bhatt. And you are correct. It looks like he doesn't have many other credits. It's pretty rare that happens.
Yeah.
He's got to do something or other. But yeah, that's literally his only thing.
Yep. And his mom, I can't remember his mom's actress name, but I know she was in one of my favorite shows, Timeless, which is like a 3-season show that I absolutely loved. But
that would
I think that's what I recognized her from.
Sakina Joffrey. This looks like it's her name. Also was in House of Cards, The Mindy Project, Mr. Robot, and those are the main ones, but I don't recognize her from any of these because I don't really watch those.
Yeah.
Oh, she was in Soul.
Oh, right. She did a voice in Soul.
She played a doctor. That's all it says.
Ah, right. I thought I did recognize her voice in there. But yeah, Patrick kind of sort of almost ruins things and they almost get caught. But the other thing that happens during a class presentation, they're Boone and Little Bear listening inside the little fanny packet pouch, and they have a bonding moment over both having dead wives. So there's that, because I guess that's what bonds anybody, is having a similar background in a way.
Right? It's more about what you have in common than what you have different.
Yeah, which is later on pretty much destroyed after a weird moment, but...
There's also a recurring theme of Little Bear saying, I need a wife, like several points throughout. And it was like, okay, well, I'll get you like a figurine. And he said, well, no, my mom's supposed to pick my wife for me. And Ombri's like, well, she's not here. And then Boone's like, hey, well, while we're on the subject, I could also use a wife.
I could also use a wife.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, which when Omri actually does get a little female Native American figurine, then the little bear's like, well, I don't even know her. Like, oh,
like,
this
do you
is
want
going
a
to be
wife
the
or
only
not?
way. Yeah, this is going to be the only way you can stay in this position and then get a wife. But later on, they almost get caught because they're acting suspicious, and then you get that really awkward scene of Omri just yelling, they're plastic, into a fanny pack way too many times than necessary for Little Bear and Boone to realize they need to pretend to be stock still plastic figurines.
Which they do a relatively good job of it.
Yeah, no, they do. They do a great job of being that still. And Patrick then stays the night. And this is when you find out that the cupboard is missing.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
One of the brothers hides the cupboard because Omri hid the hamster ball, I think is what it was. Which
didn't make any sense for Omri to do that, because at least the rat is in a ball when it's in the ball, and therefore...
yeah, it can't gnaw at somebody.
Yeah. But the most important thing is the key is missing, and the cupboard doesn't work without that key, so I can't remember why they needed to bring somebody back to life or anything. I can't remember why
they needed a medic because Little Bear shot Boone with a bow and arrow after they were watching a cowboy and Indian movie.
Oh yeah, well, I thought even before that though, they were like they wanted to do something with it.
So I think they were going to send them back. They were like, yeah, we need to
maybe that's what it was. They
anymore.
were going to send them back, and then that didn't work out because they needed to find the key, and they were going to wait till they could look for other keys that his mom collects. And until then, they were going to go ahead and watch some Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue.
Which, by the way, it confused me when the movie started. There was that, parental warning. This movie has some scenes of sexual dancing or something like that. And I was like, what? Where? Yep. Like, I could not remember what they were talking about, because I figured that would have stuck out to me. And I was like, oh, okay, Motley Crue. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which Boone is watching and clearly enjoying it, but also saying, this is just grotesque. Like, this is not right. Like, you're still watching it, Boone. You still are.
Like, they're showing a little too much.
Yep. And they, for whatever reason, switched the TV to a scene of a bunch of Native Americans getting shot up. And, of course, Little Bear is, like, freaking out. And I don't know why. Like, for the life of me, I was like, did they lose the remote? Did something happen that they can't change it? When you see Little Bear freaking out, you think you'd be like, oh, maybe we should stop watching this. But no, they keep it on. And meanwhile, Boone, even though he's now formed a sort of relationship with Little Bear, is like, yeah, that's the Apaches, kill them all, boys. And Boone shoots his gun up in the air, and Little Bear goes and shoots him with a bow and arrow. Well, shoots him with an arrow. And now we really need that key for Boone, because Boone has been hit right below his heart with an arrow in a very dramatic fashion as well.
Yeah, he even does like a very stereotypical like Western, like I've been shot or whatever hit. Like
it's Little Bear, amigo, and then he like falls forward off of, because he was sitting on Patrick's knee as they were like laying in the bed, so Patrick's knee is up and he falls off of the knee.
He just falls straight down. I was like, damn. If the arrow didn't kill him, that fall should have.
I know. Well, I mean, blankets, I guess. Soft landing. Yeah. It's like landing into 20 feet of snow or whatever. But
that'd be a lot of snow, damn.
Yeah. It would be. But it happens. But, so they desperately need the medic, and they find the key. Oh, no. And then they find out, Mom tells them that the rat is loose for some reason. So,
because he didn't have his ball.
Yeah, he hit his ball. And it's under the floorboard in his room specifically. So, naturally, you get the scene of Little Bear having to go in to get the key under the floorboards and then see the rat, which we did not, unfortunately, get to see the fight between Little Bear and the rat. And then he gets the key, and they get Tommy to come back to life, the medic to come back to life, and he saves Boone. And then that is when Omri finally realizes, okay, we need to put these people back where they belong in their past lives, in their current lives. Not in the future.
No. Although I wonder what would happen. I mean, I guess I'm thinking too much about it now, but we established that putting in, the Indian and the cowboy brought back real people. Who was being brought back when they put in, like, Darth Vader and RoboCop?
Yeah, that's true.
That part out, like, didn't I wish I hadn't just thought of that right now, because now it's bugging me.
Do you think it's like the actors, like, actually becoming...
I don't know.
That's
because
maybe
his lightsaber worked. I mean, that's what you should have done. You should have put like a life-size lightsaber replica, and then put that in there and made it real, not like a little toy version. See, that's all the missed opportunities with these kids not having imagination.
Yeah, that is true. I probably would have done that. I would have put those.
You could have put a wizard wand in there and made it real.
Oh, that would have.
Yeah, that's too powerful. You can't have that kind of magic in the world.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the book did come out. Did it come out before Star Wars? When did it come out? 1980?
Came out the same year as Empire Strikes Back, so they were aware. They knew about it.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean the author really watched Star Wars or anything. I mean, I don't know, but
I'd like to believe she was there opening day.
Yeah, it definitely is a plot issue, because if you're going to have real life people come back with these figurines, like what if it's not a real life person? If it's like the alien from Alien, or
the
Thing from Thing,
or like those aliens from Star Trek. Those two are not real people. And I would think that if it was the actors that somehow got put in there, that would be an interesting idea too. What if you put in like an Obama doll in there? Would it make it a miniature Obama? No, just kind of jumping ahead a little bit. That'd be two. Just kind of jumping forward a little bit. I do remember from one of the other books in the series that I read is that when Omri figures out that he can go into like Littlefoot's time or Little Bear's time. See, I just did it again. The magic is with the key, not the cupboard. So wherever you lock with the key is what turns it into a vessel for this kind of weird transportation thing that it does. So they later get like a footlocker that's just big enough for Omri to like climb in on. And, when they lock it and then reopen it, he's still in there, but he's like just completely unconscious. He's like in a coma. And meanwhile, his spirit like materializes and he has a body and everything. So he's not possessing a miniature in a different time frame. Like his entire being is now there, I think, is what it was.
That's not quite equal.
It's the rules don't really make a lot of sense. Like I would have to go back and reread these or get at least a synopsis on Wikipedia to find out if they ever explain what that is. Because I would think at the very least you should probably switch places with like as stupid as an example as this is. I feel like Ninja Turtles Part 3 probably had a better version of that with the time traveling lamp or whatever that was, where you switch bodies with like somebody. So that like
kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because
that makes a lot more sense than because
you just materialize or
that, or because like also he'd be jumping through time and space as opposed to just time. So there's also the thought of time travel where you stay in one spot. So like the original time traveling novel, The Time Machine, works in the fact that the machine, time travels around the machine. The machine stays in the same spot that it is in. It doesn't travel through space, so it doesn't move anywhere. It's just going fast forward or rewind within time. But this is a time and space seemingly one.
It just plucks you from like wherever. It seems kind of random. Like, I don't know if there's meant to be any kind of real logic to it. But yeah, it just grabs whoever. I mean, like we had that World War I medic who was fighting in like the trench warfare. Then you had the Iroquois who was, I forget where his particular area was, but I'm guessing it was somewhere in like the Kentucky area, if I remember correctly. I could be butchering that, but it's somewhere kind of closer to where the colonies were. Whereas, obviously, Boone was from Texas, so it just kind of seems like it could be anyone, anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Whereas at least when it's, Little Bear and Boone, they have, like, a figurine to be in. And, like, the other thing is I wonder if they even actually look like that vessel. Like, if Boone actually... Although he said his horse... Because his horse came with him, too. That was the other thing. The horse came with him. And the horse, so it's definitely probably not a plot that we should be digging into.
No, definitely not.
It's definitely like just a ex machina kind of like, just accept it. It's a kid's book. What are you gonna do?
but damn it, I want to find out.
You want to? I was almost curious because I looked up the books. I kind of am curious to kind of sort of read them, and I mean they're kids' books, so I could read them pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, they're a breeze.
Yeah, I do have a lot of other readings to do for my Love of Pages podcast, though. So we'll see if I have time. I'll see if they're at my library. I don't know if I want to buy them. I'll see if they're available at my local library.
I mean, they'd have to be.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they were really well known. They're probably still there. So after the sleepover and everything that happens, Boone ends up being okay. Thankfully, missed the heart and lung. And Omri decides it's time to send them back. And so after a slightly kind of sort of overly dramatic goodbye, actually maybe not even quite dramatic enough goodbye, he sends them back. They do extra cool poses as he does it, and he goes back to school the next day and gives his little journal presentation and explains that he misses his little bear, but little bear will basically always be in his heart. And then you have this really way too long scene of Omri just staring slightly off camera and seeming kind of sad, but then smiling at the end. And that scene really was just kind of cheesy, I guess. But maybe that was the moment. Yeah, that was like just like, and then he learned things and he smiled because he learned things. Like, that's what it felt like. It just felt a little forced of an ending, or maybe it was just like 30 seconds too long of looking at this kid's face. I don't know, but
now I remember like a sort of a difference from the book. I could be misremembering it, but I thought that in the book, Little Bear was kind of a little bit more of a prick to Omri.
Oh, really?
Like in this one, like he at first he's like, "Oh, you must be a god," and then as he figures out, "Oh no, you're just a child and you're dealing with things that you don't understand either," he still kind of takes everything pretty well for the most part.
Yeah.
I think in the books, he was a little more surly about things. Like, how dare you take me away from my home? Who are you? Why are you doing this? Kind of mentality. And I think when he gets to that point where he's like, oh, you are just a child, he just becomes kind of like super bossy. And it's like, okay, so if you're a child, that means you're beneath me in the order, like the pecking order, even though you're bigger. Like, you do what I say. And Omri just kind of goes along with it because he, at the same time also feels guilty that Little Bear was in this predicament to begin with. But I just remember that there was a little more tension and a little bit more animosity. Things change eventually, where like they kind of ease up with each other and they do learn and all that good stuff. But yeah, it didn't start off that way. I remember. I thought it was a little bit more conflict between them just because there was the confusion and all of that other stuff. But I really like that Little Bear does, in fact, seem to have, because, belief in spirits and so on, he's able to kind of deal with it relatively quickly. And just because, like, okay, spirits are doing this is magic. Yeah. Okay, let's continue from here. Whereas if this happened to, like, a normal person with, like, a modern-day mentality, they'd probably go crazy. Yeah.
I wouldn't, honestly. But, no, I'm one of those people that I'm like, so many things aren't explained that who am I to say that magic isn't real kind of thing. So I'd probably be like, magic's real, cool, knew it, boom. Like,
now how to figure out to use this to my advantage.
I know, right?
That'd be the next step.
Yeah, and you do also, I guess I kind of talked over, you get the scene of Little Bear saying, like, you're my nephew, Ness. And, I forgot the line, right before he says goodbye to Little Bear. Little Bear's like, are my people still great? Or something like that. And Omri's just kind of like, yes, your people are great. But, like, not so good things happen. Which is just a great way to just kind of brush over just the utter abuse that the colonies and that the United States did to the Iroquois and other native tribes. Like, it's just kind of like, yeah, you guys are great. You guys are totally great, but, like, just be careful. Like, I don't know what to, like, and that's where I get, like, maybe this wasn't the right film to teach this lesson of, but again, that's how you treat history when you're in elementary school, too, is, like, I remember
you
learning
really
about
got the sanitized version.
Yeah, learning about, like, I think the Trail of Tears, and it's literally, like, in the history books, it's like, and then they said the Native Americans could live in these plots of lands, and they took them there, and that's where they stayed, and then later on in, like, high school and college, you're like, and then they utterly brutalized them and forced them to leave their homes and all this, and I'm like, oh, that's not how I learned it originally. History sucks, but the truth hurts, I guess.
You find out some, Lizzo was right.
Yeah.
It's that was a great way to kind of brush over it, though. I was like, your people are still cool. Things that happen to you, not so much. It's been real, It's been real. Bye. Just good luck with all that. That's kind of what it felt like. But good luck with how you're about to be treated. Bye. Like. You couldn't have given him anything, though, to, like, help out. You couldn't have been like, oh, hey, don't go to this place, or, like, hey, don't trust this person when they come to... No, it's just... He would have been like, hey, Little Bear, you know what manifest destiny means? And he would have been like, no. It's like, okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Don't look it up.
Don't look it up. It's just... And I guess I'm used to, like, those kid shows and movies nowadays that are so set in, like, teaching kids the reality of the world. And, like, I mean, the latest Disney Pixar movie was all about death. Just straight up about death, like, and the afterlife and stuff like that, which is, and having a will to live kind of thing, and just not really sugarcoating things. I mean, kids can understand the message to it.
Well, I mean, there was a time where, I remember watching All Dogs Go to Heaven in a theater and just being utterly devastated by that movie. So
that is true. That one was pretty... Oh, I like that one. I think I liked the second one more, though, actually. I like the sequel more.
I didn't realize it was a sequel.
Oh, dude, All Dogs Go to Heaven too? Yes. No, go watch it.
I remember there was...
put it in our gems.
Oh. All right. Well, I definitely have to get caught up with my Don Bluth movies. I don't think I ever saw... Let me see. There was American Tail, then Five Old Goes West. And then was there another one after that?
I feel like there was, but it wasn't good.
Like a direct-to-video? I know there was like 6 or 7 Land Before Time sequels, and they each
there is a lot more than 6 or 7 now. There's like 14 or 15. I think they still made one like 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Like, those dinosaurs need to turn into oil already. Like, it's enough. How many more? And then I do remember they got incrementally worse with each new sequel. I think I stopped at around the 4th one because I was like, I can't do this anymore. These are awful.
I think it's the 6th one that introduces the baby T-Rex that they befriend. And
it wasn't until the
6th?
Last
one I like. I think it was the 6th. I don't know. Wow. I'm not for sure. I can't remember. I don't think I ever watched them in order. And I feel like that's another one where I like the second one more than the first one, but mainly because the first one was too sad for me to like it. So
yeah, that one's pretty rough.
Watch the one that doesn't have the scene with his mom dying.
And then his sleep gets crushed, and that was like his connection to his mother, and then it was gone, and they had to learn to let go. Oh
no. I guess there is some sadness in kids' movies, but it's mainly the animated ones, it seems. Actually, nowadays in general, it's the animated ones. But then I guess, Bridge to Terabitha, which is another one based off of a book.
Fuck that movie.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I cried so much watching that movie. No. That is not going to be on our list, by the way, ever. No.
If there's like a list of banned movies, that should be on it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's never okay to ban anything that's creative content, but at the same time, I'm never watching that movie
Let's
again.
just make it really inaccessible then.
Yeah, that one and, I can't remember the one that was like before that. I think it was like in 80s, maybe early 90s, where the boy dies of, I think, a bee allergy.
Oh, My Girl?
Huh?
Are you talking about My Girl?
My Girl, yeah, I think it is My Girl. And she has that. Yeah,
what's her
she
name?
does the glass. He's not wearing his glasses.
Culkin.
How is he gonna see? Yeah, how is he gonna see without his glasses? Every time, like, oh my god, like, who wrote this? Why would you do
that? That was Anna Klumsky.
That movie I'll never watch again.
That movie had a lot of good people in it, though. I think it had Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom and Dan Aykroyd as the dad.
I think so. I mean, it's a good movie. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, even Breach of Terabitha is a good movie. It's just...
Now, that one I do like the sequel more because it doesn't have all that horrible child death. Plus, the character was a little older, so she's exploring like a different aspect of, life at that point, teen crushes and so on. But yeah, that first one was, like, I hate it. See, and that's the thing. Bridge to Terabithia and My Girl were both marketed as like feel-good, fun family movies.
Yeah. I think that's why I watched Bridge to Terabitha. I think I watched this movie, like, I had a sick day, and whenever I had a sick day, I would rent a movie or watch a movie I hadn't seen. And because it looked so happy-go-lucky, I watched this movie, and I never read the book, and I didn't know anything about it. And then it gets to that scene, and you're just like, wait, what just happened? Like, what just happened? Why am I crying? Like, what is this? This did not need to happen. I don't need... What?
Emotional manipulation at its worst.
Yeah, basically. And you're just like, what the...
It's pretty bad.
What's the lesson here?
Never again.
Yeah, never again. But anyway, that's pretty much the Indian in the cupboard.
Yeah, I'll decide to go back, and I think the only interesting thing of note towards that last scene is that Boone asks, when we go back, will we be right where we left off, or would time have passed? Like, he was essentially asking if time passes in real time between the moment that he leaves his area, or not, and they leave that kind of open. Mm-hmm. And he says, well, I hope time passed. I'm not sure why. But I think it's a situation where they do go back to where they left off. It's almost like no real time has passed for them. Like if anything,
it'd be the opposite for Omri, because if his body is seen in a coma...
Again,
we're
the logic
go
is
down a hole that we should not go down.
The logic is kind of flawed there. It could be like, well, there's different rules for something coming in than something going out, or if where is even like the body that they inhabit? Are they taking over someone else? What is going on? That's not clear. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the rest of the series would definitely warrant a read just to be up on it. I might even do that myself and do a follow-up one of these days. Be like, hey, so yeah, we visited Indian in the Cupboard for no particular reason. I actually did that a couple years ago with Wrinkle in Time. You know what? Doesn't hold up. Not like I remember it as a kid.
Aw. I haven't read that one since I was a kid either, so...
Yeah.
And I thought about rereading it, of course, when the Disney did the movie. I haven't even watched the movie yet, because I heard it didn't do good. And
I watched the movie, and I would recommend it only for some of the visuals, because they are kind of interesting. But it's not a good adaptation, I think. It's...
That's not fun.
Some of the character choices that they decided to do were kind of weird. And overall, I don't know. It's one of those situations where like the book describes things in such a way that you imagine them very specifically. So when you see them interpreted like in a 180 from what you would have thought, like Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka, the first time I ever saw Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I was like, oh, that's not what I thought they looked like at all. But then the actual original version were kind of a little bit racist. So I was like, okay, well, Orangeman it is then.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they were basically described as looking like little cavemen, basically.
Huh.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't think I ever read any Ronald Dahl, actually.
Not even James and the Giant Peach?
No, I don't think I ever read it.
Oh,
I read a lot of like nature books. Like I read like White Fang and Jack London and Hatchet and
went through
Goosebumps.
A couple of those too.
Yeah.
Where the wild things, what is it? Call of the Wild?
Call of the Wild. Yeah, I think that was my favorite for quite a while. But yeah, I didn't read anything that was a movie I had seen, and I'm not as bad, but I have this thing where if I watch the movie first, I can't read the book. Like it just kind of ruins being able, and it's probably because like I know how it ends. So, and it's especially bad if I really, really like I will say this on here, but probably won't admit it any other podcast. But like I have never finished reading The Sorcerer's Stone and The Chamber of Secrets from Harry Potter because I watched the movies first. And I've tried like 5 times to read them, and I just get bored.
You know,
even
I gotta say,
yeah,
about the Harry Potter series film adaptations, they definitely cut out a lot of detail from the books. Oh, yeah, but it's definitely stuff you could have done without. Like we didn't need Hermione and her whole elf liberation side plot. That was perfectly fine not being in the books and in the movies rather.
No, you did, because of that last scene with Ron choosing to save the elves in the 7th book. The reason why Hermione ends up getting with Ron is that Ron is all concerned about, in the last battle, he's concerned about getting the house elves out and protecting the house elves. Because that's what Hermione loves. And then Hermione kisses him. That's why she kisses him in the book. So yes, that is kind of sort of sidely important. But because I watched the first 2 movies first before reading the books, I could never finish the books. I'd get like 3/4 away and be like, I know what happens. I'm done. But like 3 to 7, I have read multiple times. Actually, 7 I've only read once. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, the 50th tangent of the podcast. So yeah, Indian in the Cupboard, it was directed by Frank Oz, and
we didn't say what else he directed, did we?
I don't think we did. No,
because
I don't know if I recognized a lot of stuff that he directed though.
His biggest movie that I'm aware of him directing is Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh no, I do remember he directed Muppet Vision 3D, which is a theater show in Disney World. I think it better still be open in Disney World, but it's the Muppets as a 3D theater show. I mean, technically it's 4D because it has smells and all that stuff, and it was one of my favorite things when I was a kid. So he directed that. It's like, I don't know, a 15-minute show or something, and I was like, oh, Muppet Vision in 3D. But
he was definitely, some of his movies would qualify as other VHS gems. He did The Dark Crystal, which now makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So he's definitely more known for puppeteering, which is interesting because there was absolutely zero puppets in this.
No,
see, that's where you could have gotten the scene of the rat and Little Bear, was they could have used a giant rat puppet.
I guess so. He also did The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Yeah.
And then a few comedies like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, What About Bob, House Sitter, In and Out, Bowfinger, The Score.
Bowfinger's a top Steve Martin movie. I love that movie.
Yeah. Stepford Wives, Death at a Funeral. And, that was his last movie he directed personally. That was 2007. He's done one episode of the show Leverage, 2 documentaries, Muppet Guys Talking, I'm assuming that's about working as a puppeteer, and Derek Delgadio's In and of Itself, which I have no idea what that is, but that was released last year.
Huh. So he has
also
done
should
a bunch
point
of
out
stuff that I like.
Also should point out he's the voice of Miss Piggy, Yoda, and Fozzie Bear.
I love all those things.
Yes, he's very integral to your childhood and didn't realize it.
Yes, I know. And then he made this, which after watching it, I talked to my mom because I watched it and I was like, why did I like this when I was a kid? Because she told me, like, you watched it quite a bit. And then she kind of goes, I don't know why. I always thought it was weird. And she's like, but I do remember that the VHS copy that I got came with the key. And I think it also came with the figurine. And she's like, I feel like because it came with things that I felt obligated to like the movie.
That was always the best when in the time of VHS, you didn't really have a lot of bonus features or little extras. I think one of the first ones I saw like that was Grease, for one of its anniversary editions, came with a copy of the script, which, by the way, right. If you've never read the script, it is so different from the finished product. You could tell they just made up a bunch of stuff on the spot or changed things wildly because there's some pretty wacky stuff in there.
But Grease was also a musical before it was a movie, if I remember correctly. And the musical is not dramatically different, but it's pretty different from...
It's very different tone, yeah. It's like a little more serious.
Yeah.
But, there was the Indian in the Cupboard did in fact come with, I believe, the key and the Indian figurine. Yep. And
it made me feel obligated to try to like the movie, which is why I watched it so much, even though I fast-forwarded through the scary scenes.
I'll have to look into it someday. I wonder if they still have those as, like, collectibles on eBay.
I should look.
VHS Gems Library.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Indian in the Cupboard. I think anything else that stands out to you about it, wanted to comment on?
Yeah, no, I think that's it. If people have any questions for you, John, where should they ask them?
I will be available from now until the light is extinguished at Twitter. You can find me at MagicBollocks.
If you want to talk to me and not about depressing things like light extinguishings or anything, you can tweet at me as at JMBaileyWright. You can also follow Geek Elite Media. They are at Geek Elite Media on Twitter and on Instagram and Facebook.com/Geek Elite Media. Be sure to check out our Patreon page, in which we have a lot of bonus content and stuff that you can't see on this podcast. I don't know exactly what we're going to do for bonuses for this podcast yet, but maybe possibly some live reacts to the movies that we're watching. That would be fun if I can figure out how to record that. And all other fun stuff on our Patreon page if you got some dollars to give, please. And this podcast and other podcasts that we have, including the Geeks Watch that John and I are also in, can be found at geekelitemedia.com. So until then, always remember to geek out.
This concludes our broadcast.